rather laughing. Good afternoon to you and welcome to Go Back TV this beautiful afternoon. My name is Makky, Makky, and this is Hangout with Makky. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the excess of landlords, lawyers, and agents in Enugu property business. I know the English might seem too long, want to really look at how to cut down on some of the charges that some of our agents, the lawyer fee that we know, the agency fee we know, the landlords, how they want to mount pressure on you after paying your bills and then they ask you to pay another thing. Don't forget that this is Go Back TV and still with your paddy girl, Makky. I am not alone today. It's going to be actually a beautiful time. I have someone whom, men listening to him outside the podcast, he's already looking like interesting. Yeah, I kind of love every bit of it, and he's going to help us dissect this topic. And you also that is listening to me right now, you're also going to help us. So the numbers to call is on our screen. Just put up the number and call, or you can just drop your opinion on the said topic. Okay, all right, so let's just get to it immediately. I have with me in the studio barrister. Okay, I thought you said I should not. Okay, but let me just do it. I've already started. I have with me barrister Promise all the way. Let's leave that one down. Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much and good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing, sir?
What do I say? I think I'm fine. I'm very okay.
Okay, so
it's just that coming to Enugu and talking about lawyers and what they do here, and I'm a lawyer. It's like reporting myself. But Makky, it's become a communal problem that has to really be talked about.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's why I have to really look at how we're not doing it right.
Exactly.
And be objective about talking about what I think it is very wrong about what we're doing.
Exactly. So, but first, let me ask how Enugu weather is treating you today. Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I do. I'm from here, unfortunately. Fortunately for me, I'm from here.
Okay.
I don't live here, unfortunately.
Exactly.
But I feel the sun is really very, very heavy and harsh on my skin. But I see yellow people here. I don't know how you combine that,
Wait, okay, calm down. Before we proceed, calm down. Are you saying that the sun here is harsh compared to the one back there?
Maybe I am not saying that. But you see, it's like hellfire is closer here. Because of the extent of enjoy here. So it makes hellfire very, very, very apparent here.
Okay.
But, it also shows that where I'm coming from. I come from the north to say the fact that it's actually very hot. We're closer to God, so He's forgiving all our sins and we don't.
How people would say things like if you go to the north that the sun there is out of this world. I mean, someone will literally melt under the sun.
No, you don't. There you don't sweat under the sun. But here, man, you're cooking your steam.
Okay, I know some people would disagree with you, but this is really not the reason why we're having this conversation. But a lot of people are going to disagree in that aspect of the sun here and then the sun there. But okay, that's on a later note. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. Thank you for giving us this time, to talk about sex, knowing fully well that this is your field, and we're also talking about your field. But we're using Enugu as a case study. We're talking about excess the excesses of lawyers, landlords, agents, and all these things when it comes to property business. There's this particular thing that is happening in Enugu, and I really want us to talk about it. The fact that if you get an apartment where you're paying something like 700,000, let's just say a 2-bedroom apartment where you're paying 700,000 naira, and then by the time you're done with all the pains here and there, you end up paying something like 1.4 million. Yes. I'm not telling you what I don't know. I'm telling you what I know. You end up paying something like 1.4 million, 1.2 million, 1.3 million, 1 million, 2. So the thing is, the rent is 700. You pay lawyer. And lawyers these days, they don't even
why you go talk about lawyer first?
Let me start from lawyer, because their own, they will tell you it's not negotiable. Okay, you're not going to negotiate this one. So a lawyer is collecting 100 or 150.
You think that's fair, sort of?
Okay, let me just finish, because if I invest my anger here now,
I beg you, best.
Okay, a lawyer is collecting like, okay, let's say 100, 150. Agent is collecting 200, and when you ask why, they will tell you because it's not one person. There might actually be 10 persons to one house. So practically everybody in Enugu is now an agent. Everybody wants to own one property or the other. You're looking for an apartment. Yes, I know somebody that knows somebody. So you see that two people will take you to a particular house. And when you succeed, when you have succeeded in getting that apartment, you're now paying for all the stuff they put together. This person is collecting from here, this person is collecting from here. And then talking about the landlord's issue, bringing it down to landlord. A landlord is charging you 700,000 naira. Some will tell you that you're going to pay a particular amount. So sometimes the landlords are even the lawyers. They are the one collecting the lawyer fee. I can remember when I paid a rent of about 300, I ended up paying like 458. I didn't get it. And the angry part of, or the annoying part of it is that they will tell you is non-negotiable. You if you're not paying, I didn't even talk about caution. They collect caution fee, management, security, water, sweeping of compound. By the time they are done listing all these things, it's 1 point something million. A house that you're going to pay 700,000. So I even insist you pay for a 2-bedroom. So please, my question now is, do you think is something people should practice? Do you think is something normal? Because to me, I'm not seeing anything normal about it, and people are saying it, but it seems like nobody is even listening to anybody. So please, let's talk on excessive the excesses of landlords, agency, and lawyer when it comes to business, property business in Enugu. Not Enugu now, you can just, but we're using Enugu as a case study. But generally, I believe you have gone to other places, you've heard from other persons. Is it like that in other states?
Is it like that in other states? Let me actually attempt your last question first. It is not. You will understand or believe with me that at the time in Enugu, houses were cheaper here than they are in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and in some places in the north. You will say something has happened to the cocoyam that made it cry out. It is not like that in other places. What you built in are things that are not supposed to be there, like you're mentioning. Somebody's saying, and I need to take up the factors that you raised one after the other. One is that you talked about tenancy.
Exactly.
Number 2, you talked about the contract of tenancy.
Yeah.
Number 3, you talked about lawyers.
Exactly.
Number 4, you talked about agents. Then number 5, you talked about the consideration. Number 6, you really raised a lot of issues that we have to deal with one after the other. Now, what's tenancy? Somebody builds a house and he wants to rent that house to somebody else for what is called rents. As a result of it, he negotiates with somebody who is called a tenant to come into the place and use the place, maintain it in tenantable condition, or relinquish that property at the end of a term certain. Sometimes tenancies inure in from month to month, from 1 month to 3 months, 1 month to 6 months, or from year to year. These are the things that are recognized by law. Then some of the time you also have what is called the lease system, where people take up accommodation in a property for more than 2 years. Terms and conditions stated, maybe paying for a number of years or paying in bits for those number of years that are going to stay there.
Okay.
Then these things are regulated by two things. Matter of fact, they're first regulated by law. Tenancy issues are like labor issues. They're regulated by law first. But there is another aspect of it, which is the aspect of contract. The aspect of law is that in Nigeria, there are laws that regulate property issues. There is the Property Act. There is also the Tenancy Act, or the property laws of the states that are concerned. Enugu State has its own property laws. There are so many of them. I am not going to bore you because you're actually not interested in what the law said here. You're actually interested in what has become the practice of trade in Enugu municipality. Yeah. And of course you frown because there is a societal problem created by the ways these things are done. Of course, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand that these things are done wrongly. And I think it is becoming a societal discourse now, because you feel that there is something outside the regular in the entirety of this thing. Let me go back to what I was saying. The laws regulate how these things are done. The laws even recommend what is contained in these terms that I mentioned. The law regulates what you have to do when you have to give notices. The law regulates, the laws tend to suggest what is it that will be the relationship between a landlord and a tenant. The law tends to suggest that when these things are not done, what happens. Matter of fact, in law it is said that a tenant is a citizen the law hates but must protect. Because the tenant seems to be weaker than the landlord. So the laws of tenancy is actually created in a way to be in favor of the tenant, not the landlord. So where the system is practiced in a way adverse to the interest of the tenant, then something is wrong. Not with the law, but with the ignorance of the law. Now let me get to the second part. The laws about the tenancy is very, very, very correct, very okay. In all the states, these things are made by those who thought it through and put it there to do two things. One, to protect somebody who has paid rents. Number two, to protect a landlord from losing rent. There are other things that come in between these two. Protecting the landlord in the sense that you're not supposed to commit waste on somebody's compound. Protect the tenant in the sense that you're not even supposed to gazump when a tenant is living in a place. You cannot come in without the permission of the tenant. For the sake of paying rents, a tenant has acquired a quasi-possessory right, even against the landlord. He cannot actually come in whenever he wants. He cannot do whatever maintenance he wants to do. He cannot actually increase what the tenant is spending. Right? Because for the sake of payment, the tenant has acquired certain rights. So not knowing the requirement of law and the protection that inures to a tenant puts all these things in the purview of contracts. I don't want to go into defining what contracts are here or what a contract is, but you know that at the level of those who are non-lawyers, there are elements that are 5 of them. Number 1, there must be an offer, there must be an acceptance, there must be consideration, there must be meeting of the mind. Meeting of the mind is that two persons must have the intention to actually be bound by what they go into. So when you say that somebody calls you and say, what I'm telling you here is non-negotiable, it's wrong. That's not a contract. Contracts are negotiated. It's just like a landlord writes you a letter in a place and tells you that your rent has been increased, take notes. That is not a contract. That's not binding. That's not binding on tenants. Because you can actually decide this letter, I call it bluff of it, or you can write back and say, I'm not accepting it. The only disadvantage you run then is that the landlord at the end of it will kick you out. So the system has put the tenant in a very weak negotiation standard. The contract you now enter into, you now accept, is a type that you don't have a very strong bargaining power with whoever is landlord. The systemic problems that you have around has given a tenant a very weak negotiation stand, and I'll mention some of them. What you're talking about in Enugu, I told you that before now, that Enugu used to be very affordable.
Yeah.
Houses here, nobody lives in them. Of course, you also see that landlords don't maintain their houses here. We're now going into the 4-decim. That is very popular. I choose my words very carefully. The 4-decim that is prevalent in Anambra State.
Exactly.
People are building high-rise buildings, and that's all. They don't maintain them. The facilities that are supposed to be there are not there. You don't have a playing space for children. You don't have a good parking space for people who drive vehicles.
Exactly.
You don't have a water system. You don't have a sanitary system. But still, when you look at the failure of society, these problems, where do you now cast it? The cost of building materials have become so high that whoever gets to build anything is actually at the mercy of those who sell building materials. He builds something and he puts all his problems in it. Anything you do, you say you are a destiny destroyer, so
Exactly.
he has to do whatever he has to do. That's one. Number two is that the crisis that you mentioned, because it has actually assumed a crisis proportion in Enugu, has a date, a commencement date. This was not so pre-Yaradua's administration. You can point to it to say, I schooled here, I went to UNEC. Pre-Yaradua's administration, this conflict, this madness, this type of pandemonium you're talking about was not here.
Yeah.
Because there was a high sense of relaxation and security in other parts of the country. People who lived in northeast, northwest, and people who lived in villages that go to townships to do their businesses, they don't need to come back to the southeast. But when the issue of insecurity, Boko Haram, the rest of them started in the north, people started running home because northwest, southeast, home is always the best.
Exactly.
So when people aggregated, it's just like you traced fire around a rat hole. The rat now ran into the middle, and the fire is now choking them in the middle. So it creates a pandemonium. The issue of insecurity created a second reason for what you're saying. Let me talk about a lawyer and an agent. Who is a lawyer? Who is an agent? Now, the law says that everything that has to do with real property, realty, or land is the exclusive preserve of lawyers. Let me repeat that.
Okay.
It is actually the legal right of lawyers to manage property, to the exclusion of every other profession. It may sound very Draconian, but it is actually true. When it comes to writing documents relating to land, or relating to anything standing on land, it is the exclusive preserve of lawyers given to them exclusively by the law. So when you see other people who go drafting tenancy contracts, who go acting in any other way, getting somebody to go check out a house and the rest of it, they're actually trespassing in the enclaves that is exclusive for lawyers. Now, I have actually said who a lawyer is in relation to property. Then who is an agent? An agent is a person, there is something they said in law that we fashipa anum fashipa say, he that acts through another person acts in person. You understand? So it is like when a landlord sends a lawyer, the landlord has actually sent an agent. You cannot actually delegate power that is delegated to you in agency contracts. I don't know if you understand. You cannot have what you call agents who now a landlord tells you, go and rent my house. That agent will not have the power to appoint another agent. Because you cannot delegate. It is what is called delegatus non potest delegare. A delegated power cannot be delegated. So when you bring up the issue of having a lawyer who's already an agent by law, delegating some other persons to carry out a job, you're actually doing two delegations, which is wrong. Number two, monies that are acquired illegally by agent is actually acquired for the landlord. It's actually the money of the landlord or money of the principal. If you send somebody to do a thing for you and the person takes more money, you are entitled to recover it from the person. Number three, the crime or the fraud committed by an agent is actually committed for the landlord, for the employer or for the principal. So these are proper positions. So when it comes to paying for agency, you don't pay twice. If you had paid an agent, you're not supposed to do it two times. So there is actually there is nothing like you paid a lawyer. What is the fee for? He's an agent for the landlord. Now you go pay an agent. You get as it be. I'm still going to come to the aspect of contract, because somebody who wants to differ with me will say this has become what you agreed. But is there really the willingness to enter into a contract? Contracts must be done willingly. When you have taken hold of societal ills to exploit people, and you bring in certain other things in it, like you said, a landlord will collect this fee, collect this fee, collect this fee, collect this fee. Yes, practice of trade has brought into place what is called a caution fee. Okay. That people leave houses they lived in dilapidated form. But when you write the contract of tenancy, there is always a clause that says you must put the property in tenantable condition when you want to go. So when people started failing, the issue of bringing up the act of receiving caution fee in case you didn't, this money will not be used, came up. So there is a reason for the caution fee, but you cannot pay for tenancy agreement and you don't pay somebody else. No, that's wrong. That's very wrong. Now you cannot also pay somebody who pays somebody. I've explained that when I was telling you that delegatus non potest delegare, you cannot delegate a power that is delegated to you. If a landlord wants to rent a house or finished building, the right thing is one, get a lawyer.
Yeah.
The lawyer puts his banner on the place or his website or any of the places, or on his WhatsApp status or on his Facebook status, or relates to people about it. Then, as a contractor or as an agent of a principal, he now has the power to put the place in whatever he gets that is agreed to by the person who employs him is actually supposed to be paid by the landlord, not by the tenants or the intending tenant, because he is not the agent of the tenant, he's the agent of the landlord. So you cannot actually, in good conscience, like you work for Julius Berger, you now go to Sahat stores
and then go
to get your payment. You know, it is in itself oppressive and obnoxious. So it is not right that a landlord should transfer the lawyer's fee to the tenants. It's wrong. But because it has become a pattern of trade, it's become a custom of trade, there is something they say there. It has come to stay because people are not questioning it. Just like I said, the lawyer now has the right under the laws also to employ one or two persons to help him market a property. The fee he pays those persons should be covered from the fees he collects as legal fee. And there is another thing we don't do. We don't share fee paid to a lawyer. It is wrong. You cannot come to a lawyer and say, okay, we did this job, you now give me 50% or 10%. But if a lawyer says you're going to do me one or two services over a particular job, and I say, how much are you going to collect? He's paying you for your job, not sharing fees with you. So when you look at all the issues you've raised, you notice that what is happening to Enugu unfortunately, stems from our unbridled greed that is gave rise to by the harsh circumstances that is around us. Let me digress.
Okay.
And let me say something very controversial. You see, every day, every Monday, people sit at home here. I don't live here.
Exactly.
But on social media, Biafra, we want to have a country and all this. Is that how we get it? To unburden the very helpless man, to burden the very helpless man to death. Everything seems to be very scarce, very unaffordable, and you put your very heavy boots on a very weak man and extort things from that person. That's very wrong. Let me just stop here now. Lawyers are paid to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
To an extent, I don't even feel like letting you stop. But we won't stop and continue. You said a lot of things. I picked a lot of things from what you said. That aspect of greed, and also that aspect of somehow we have not really looked into that aspect of a lawyer getting his fee from the landlord. You just made mention of it and the thing just hits my head. How can a landlord is contacting you, or like a contract, you're going to take care of this house, so he's supposed to pay you and not the tenant.
I'm going to explain something there so that you don't take it away as a question. When it comes to property legal transactions, a lawyer can actually represent for and against, but it must be by the agreement of both parties. When a lawyer is representing a buyer and a seller, when it comes to the sale of property, is actually called a stakeholder. That's what we call him in law.
Okay.
But the picture you're painting is not the picture of a stakeholder. It's a picture of an agent, a lawyer who is acting for the landlord. So the tenants, intended tenants, has never agreed to a lawyer representing him. You can actually look at the tenancy agreement, read it and sign. So, of course, if you don't sign a tenancy agreement, I've never signed one here as a lawyer. I've lived in people's property in the past, but I've never signed a tenancy agreement because the law has also provided what will happen in case of any conflict or in case of when I want to leave. So it's neither here nor there that somebody's imposing somebody on you, because at the point that a lawyer is coming in to say, my client owns this house, you pay, then you pay me for legal services. You didn't do any legal service for me, you did it for the landlord. So I'm not going to pay you. But the only thing I have said before is that the parity of contracts puts the tenant in a suzerainty position.
Exactly.
He doesn't have a negotiation platform that is of equal with the landlord. So you have your back against the wall. You accept it with water in your ears. That's what it is.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question because we're not going to take a lot of time in as much as I'm already taking your time, and I apologize for that. Okay, so I want to look into this aspect. I want to digress also a little in the aspect of a tenant living in an apartment for 1 year. You just moved in, and then the next year you were supposed to renew your rent, and then you got this notice that they just increased the rent.
Yes.
Without notice, no prior notice. It was just a form of text message. This is what you're now supposed to pay, and then you now say, okay, I want to go and meet the lawyer. Say, sir, why am I paying this? He said they increased the rent. Who is they? That the landlord increased the rent. So as a lawyer now, and I want to ask this question: is it right for a landlord or even the lawyer in charge of a property to increase a rent 1 year after you paid or 1 year after you moved without prior notice, without anything?
Thank you, Makky. Of course, this question you asked is actually the most important question here. You see, the quest to have increases by having. People who gets wants to get. Driving factors could also be that if the property business in Nigeria and in Enugu is not a thing that you do for profit, and I will explain. A bag of cement last 2 years is between 2.5, 2.7 and 3,000.
Yeah.
Now a bag of cement is about 8,000 naira by the greed of our own traders, because the raw materials are from here and the rest of it. And when you touch the manufacturing, we tell you, I have to provide energy. That is not that I'm paying for all those things. But you will agree with me that what has happened to our economy, what has happened to the buying power, the purchase power of Naira, what has happened to the leadership of our country, what has happened to raw materials, what has happened to building material, has driven inflation unreasonably out of the reach of whoever that wants to go into property business. It is always easier to eat the food when it is ready, but whoever is building passes through it's like a camel passing through the eye of a needle. It's not easy. Now, when you build a house and you see 2-bedroom flat for 700,000, and you look at that house, you built it with maybe 2-bedroom flat, let's say, exclusive, finishing, and you throw in about 14-15 million to get this house in place. Divided by 700,000. How many years? If you're 50, add those number of years to your life. And the economy in Naira is not going to be stable until you recoup your investment. So when are you going to make profit? It may not happen in your lifetime. So it is just like you recycling money so that you don't eat it or Oringo or J1759 regularly. No. You actually put this thing in one place so that money can come back to you in trickles during your lifetime. So instead of finishing the money at once, you want to finish it gradually, right? Now it opens up another sphere that you want to eat that money that is yours gradually. What if you borrowed it? You won't be able to pay within the time required. So it is a big risk going into property business in Nigeria and in Enugu, because the same thing I cover everywhere. But having said that, the law does not permit somebody to increase rents arbitrarily. I think, I'm not too sure, but the law recommends 3 years. I stand to be corrected. 3 years seems to be reasonable. That if somebody has come into the place and you have done your fixtures and your fittings, and it doesn't match the person's tastes or doesn't match the use the person want to make of the place, the person did some renovations and the rest of it, the person definitely will need more time to recoup this thing. And that is the reason why people run into leases instead of doing tenancies, because leases are going to give you maybe a space of 3 years, 10 years. You pay for 2, then pay 1. It will hamstring the landlord from arbitrarily changing the goalpost in the middle of the match, or changing the rule of the game in the middle of the war. Yeah. You understand? So the law does not allow arbitrary increments in rents, but the economy arbitrarily brings in inflation. So I'm just trying to be very objective here. Despite that, who loses? Do you allow the landlord to lose in this circumstance? So it depends on who you ask. If you ask the landlord will tell you, am I just going to do this thing? But if you ask the tenants, it doesn't bring in this fairness that I just came into your place and after 1 year you're increasing.
Exactly.
That's one. But there is much more important aspect of this, is the aspect of contract. There is no law that actually says that 2-bedroom flat should be 700,000. No law. It is actually rents are agreed upon. It is just like you go to where they sell Ogo at Holy Ghost here, and you go there. You don't just go pick it and drop money, or you just stand in front of this place and you see Keke going to Holy Ghost. You don't just enter and give money. You ask them how much, right?
Yeah.
The person offers you a house to rent. You've accepted to rent, but there is a consideration called money, and that is negotiated. How much? 1 naira, 700,000 in circumstance of 2-bedroom flat, prevalent around here, right?
Exactly.
And the tenant says, I can't do that. Another person comes until somebody accepts. I'll give you an example. Before this podcast started,
Okay.
somebody has called me for more than 4 years now, for more than 4 days now, for a building, and I've said, the landlord said 2 million per year. The least is that you have to pay me for 2 years. And the number of persons that have called over the house is more than 15. I'm being modest, more than 15. But we continue to negotiate the price. Somebody has priced 1.5, the other person will price 1.7 because he's going to maintain. The only thing that became the difference is that he said, if I'm going to maintain this large property, you're not going to give me 2 years. You're going to leave it for me for 5 years so that I can recoup what I've spent. So when a tenant comes in and has done 1 or 2 changes, you push him out after 1 year because he has refused or he can't pay what you added. That's unfair. That's one. Number 2, rents are negotiated. It is only in circumstance that where people don't know their rights that a landlord will send a text message and tell you your rent has been increased. That's funny. If I don't accept it, I'm still at my old rent. If I keep quiet, it doesn't mean acceptance, because there is a prevalent practice. When I came in, you told me this thing is for XY amount.
Exactly.
And I paid you. So you send me a text message telling me you have increased. You naturally, I'll keep quiet and forget it. And there is no way you can recover that new rental. Under our laws, you can't. You can't. Even if you sue that, even if you sue that tenant, and they're going to calculate what he's owing you, and the matter lasted for 5 years, you're going to get the first rent that he agreed to pay. Because he has to say, I accept, before it becomes the new rent. It is contract. It was negotiated from the beginning. You told him the amount, he accepted. He paid you. So it is not in your place as a landlord to just wake up and look at the length of your suit or the size of your white beards now and say, this man, when he came here, he was on bicycle.
Now he's
In day here by keke now. He don't marry. I see the way when in so new clothes go starch him that day, money don't come, therefore I increase it. No. 2 of you have to sit and you still make him the offer of the amount you are increasing to. And he tells you, don't you know, I have taken more titles at home. I'm marrying a second wife. I can't afford to pay your rent now. I can't afford increments. It's okay if you don't go afford them, which is still the very weak side. I gave those bad examples, but there are good examples. And he says, I can't take this, landlord. I just came in. And it's okay if you can't take it, leave. And you go to court, serve him notices and the rest of it and the rest of it. And he goes. In good conscience, you've done wrong. But you cannot send somebody text message and say, I've increased your rent. It's not done that way. If he refuses to respond, he has not accepted. So the law still retain him at the previous rents. So if you've gone to build castle in the air, blown yourself with hot air, and you're floating, that you've calculated your egg before they hatch. I'm going to get 2 poultry farms. When these people pay me now, I'm going to become the millionaire I've always wanted to be. Instead of 700, I'll be making 1.2. You calculate all those things, you're going to fail at the end of it because nobody accepted it. there has to be very explicit acceptance or by conduct that, see, I've accepted your increment. If the tenant does not, it doesn't, the increment will not stand anywhere.
You know, I'm not saying people should, or tenants go about looking for troubles, but in cases like that where you're being served, in fact you got that increment, you want to pay your rent, and then you got that increment, and then you decide to like reach out to the person, and the person is not doing anything, and then the next thing they're serving you papers like a quit notice. I'm giving you so time to so time so you can move out. Once your rent expires in so date, you are moving out. And you know, this part of do I say this part of the world or this part of the country where some persons will even be giving you advice like, why not just leave the matter? Is it that you pack out or just leave? You know, if you go to court, you might not even win, or why would you even be going to court and be wasting money and stuff like that? So in cases like this where you know you're not at fault and then quit notice is being given to you, are you as a tenant supposed to sue or just pay or even move out?
Yes, I have to start from your first question now. And that is the issue of the notices that are supposed to be served. It is actually the notice that gives the court jurisdiction to even determine a matter. Where an improper notice is served, even if you go to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court will not even have the power to eject the tenant. So it is a very compulsory thing that a tenant must be served notices. Now, let me say something that very many people will not like. They say, okay, you want me to go out of your place, give me notice. That notice is not free. It is paid for. Because law does not allow a landlord to lose his rent. No, he's not supposed to lose rent. It's just a period given to a tenant to look for another accommodation while he pays for the length of time. Now, for somebody whose tenancy is for 1 month, the law provides that he be given a 1 month notice. For somebody whose tenancy is for 3 months, the law also provides for 1 month. For 6 months, I think, I'm not too sure now, the law also provides for 1 month. But for 1 year, the law provides for 6 months. And the notice must actually come to an end at the eve of the anniversary of the tenancy. I've seen a situation where a woman rented an apartment to somebody, and before 6 months has served a quit notice. We went to court and say you can't do that because you are aware that certain XYZ things were changed and you gave permission for them. Money was expended. So by that, excuse me. So sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know if I turned it off. All right. As I was trying to explain, that notice must come to an end at the eve of the anniversary. So if the tenancy started on the 1st of January, the expiration of the notice must be 31st of December. So there is actually nothing that permits somebody to, within the tenancy, and say, I'm giving you 6 months. I don't know if you understand. I'm giving you 6 months. You can leave. And the tenancy started 1st of March. And before November, you're giving the person 6 months. You are not going to have 6 months. Or the 6 months must not finish. So if you're giving somebody that has come into a property on the 1st of January, you can actually give you 6 months from 2nd of January. But you can't do anything until the tenancy finishes. So it is not an act of if you cannot pay, get out. That's one. So notices must be served. Notices as to law must be served. That's one. Number two, I'm going to tell you the exceptions. I don't know why I'm teaching you these things. The second thing is that if the tenant fails to move out, you still have to serve the tenant intention to go to court. It is always 7 days. Then if the tenant still fails at that time, you have to go to court. The only thing is that when you've gone to court, the tenant is not staying there for free, because every day, every month, every year that passes, his rent is calculated. And that's what I was saying before, that his rent is calculated at the rental value that he agreed to. So if it is a fighter, if the tenant is a fighter and it goes from magistrate court to high court and cumulatively to the court of appeal, if it is permitted, he will stay in the building. So it is until it comes to an end, and you're not going to come to the court of appeal or so, or come to the Supreme Court and say, my lords, this man has stayed in this house for 15 years. The rental value has increased from 1 naira to 20 naira. Therefore, give me 20 naira. The justices will still give you 1 naira, because that was what you're entitled to when you agreed in the first rent. So it works against whoever. So that's what must happen before you can recover vacant possession. And moreover, there is only one way a tenant or a landlord can recover a house from a tenant without doing all those things.
Okay.
That way is where the tenant is releasing the house. That's just one exception to the tenancy, to the issue of requirement of notices. But there is another. That is what the one nobody wants to hear.
Okay.
Where contract has said that even if you are here on lease and you paid me for 10 years, that if you fail or violate the tenancy, I will give you 7 days. Once you sign that, it becomes binding. That is why when you see houses that does not have tenancy agreements, the tenants are actually more protected than houses that have tenancy agreements. Because most times the landlord will specify the length of tenancy, the length of quit notice, or the length of notice. Some contract will tell you, we are not going to serve a quit notice. We are only going to serve it with this agreement now has become a quit notice. So if it comes to an end, you are going to go. But it gives you another right, that if you are a yearly tenant and your contract says from January the 2nd of this year to January the 1st of next year, that's a term setting. There is a beginning, there is an end. That is a contract. You have paid one consideration, which is rent for it. You've accepted it. The terms are known. If you finish staying that one, and you go into the next year, it starts running and you paid, and there is no new tenancy agreement. The first one you signed said 7 days, then you quit. But the second one is silent. There is actually no existent tenancy agreement for the second one from year to year now. The first one is that you just run 1 year. That's what the tenancy agreement said.
Yeah.
But the tenancy has been converted from year to year. You finish the first year, the landlord's wife liked you. They give you some title in church, and you attend the same church with the landlord, so you're a good guy. The landlord just didn't bother, and you go into the second year and you start running. That tenancy agreement you signed for the first year has ended. The landlord is giving the benefit of what the tenancy law said, not what that agreement said. So you can't come up tomorrow and say, last year we agreed that once I want to terminate in 7 days. If you bring out 7 days, it will fail, because there is no new agreement that gives rise to the new 7 days. You'll be given the 6 months if it is 1 year, or the 3 months if it is 6 months, or the 1 month if it is 1 month, or vice versa, as the law requires, Section 7 and Section 8 of the Tenancy Act that is prevalent in other places. So I think I've given you more than I'm supposed to, Yes.
I'm seriously enjoying the. Okay, I don't want this is national TV or rather we're live and I don't want people to. Yeah, but I'm glad you answered that question. Sometimes we act of ignorant. I don't know if I should call it that, or because we don't just want that trouble. Then a lot of persons are being trampled upon. So, but let's move to this agency now. We're now talking about agency and lawyer. If at all, now there must be agency fee or lawyer fee. Like, what percentage you think it should be? Should there be, if you're paying 1 million naira, the agency fee should be 10% of what you're paying? Or if you're paying 1 million naira, you're paying 2% of that 1 million naira? Because this very one, they just call any amount.
Modeled up things.
They just tell you you're paying 200,000, agency is 200,000. So you're paying rent 200,000, and agency is 200,000. Then lawyer is 100,000. You're not removing anything from it. Then plus other things. So is there a way we can come to agreement either with the lawyers, agents, or even the landlords that okay, this should be 10%? When the new governor came in, the sitting governor, when he came in, he really mentioned that because during the campaign, people raised topics like agents want to buy us in Enugu, agents want to kill us in Enugu. If you're not renting a house of even 1 room apartment, like 1 room, no toilet and bathroom outside, even 1 room apartment, if you're paying 80,000 before you're done with what you're paying, you end up paying like 1 something 200. You don't be telling yourself, but I don't have money to do all this one. But of course you will stay somewhere. So should there be a particular amount, maybe a percentage one should pay when acquiring a house in Enugu? First, let's start from where we are. If you want to get a house, now say okay, it's 10%. If you're paying 300,000, it's 10%. You know that this is what I'm supposed to pay. This is 5% what I'm supposed to pay. I lived in Asaba at some point, and when I wanted to pay my rent, what I paid at that time was about 120 or 140. No, it was not even up to 120 or 112, something like that. That was what I paid. The was the agent? Yeah, the agency fee that I paid was about 12,000, and that was like percentage of the money I was paying, either 10% of what I was paying or 5% of what I was paying. I don't know, but that was what I paid. But getting to Enugu, it was a whole different ball game altogether. When they told me I was going to pay, then I paid 100,000 for rent or 1 something, 200,000. They were telling me you pay 100,000 naira for agents. I was like, what's going on? So my question now is, should there be a particular, if at all, there must be agency fee and lawyer fee? What percentage should a tenant pay?
Thank you. It's supposed to be the crux of what we're talking about, because it's like we're bringing solutions to the chaos that pervade the property business here.
Exactly.
Let me start with what is called practice of trade. Said in Igbo language, you see, when you do the wrong thing for a long time, it becomes a practice, becomes custom, unfortunately. But just as you said that when the governor was campaigning, people raised us and said,
exactly,
this has become our problem. The reason why it's a problem is because it's wrong. We are a cluster of very reasonable people. We cannot, for whatever reason, for greed or lack of faith, or for trying to cope with the exigencies of the difficult times we find ourselves, then we go into doing something wrong and doing it with a level of lack of human touch or manifest impunity, just as you painted. Because when you shoot yourself on the leg, you're going to feel the pains yourself. You see, they say that that the dinosaurs became too reckless and they destroyed themselves out of existence. If you continue to run the property business like this, you're going to destroy it. You're going to destroy the housing business. And I'll give you an example. What makes houses in particular places to attract certain type of rents, apart from the human pressure, is that government is not actually doing anything to help the housing sector. That's one.
Yeah.
The scarcity has put the housing, the demand for housing, in the line of other prevalent demands. We queue for everything. We don't have enough schools for people who has graduated or who has finished secondary school. We don't have enough school for those who want to jackpot. We don't have enough fuel for those who want to drive a vehicle. We never have anything enough in this place. So housing is just part of the entire madness that is prevalent in our society, unfortunately. And because of how few this thing has become, it has created this conflict that you talked about. And also because of lack of jobs for people who qualify in certain areas. These easy-going areas of milking other people harshly provides in itself a quasi type of anything you do out of good conscience is semi to crime. You are a towing van sees you wrecked in the middle of nowhere. He drives to you and tells you, I used to collect 3 naira, then you give me 4. You're bleeding from your head. But because he sees your helplessness, he wants to double his pay. That's a moral crime. So what you're getting here in Enugu, people putting in all manner of things. You bring Utaba fee because you want to this thing. My grandmother that died has to get his second burial, therefore you're going to pay because you want to be tenants. One has to get something, as if you're marrying a wife. Has brought in something on the oppressed tenants that sees this thing as if you're stealing from me what you're not entitled to. The consciousness that there is something you're taking from me that is wrong is what should drive a solution. Now, let me get back to what you asked. I'll still come back to this. We're not talking of just legalizing for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But is there a particular fee that lawyers are supposed to charge? Yes, lawyers have charging templates. But there is also the prevalent practice of trade. We sometimes charge 10%. And that 10% covers the management of the house, excluding litigation. I don't know if you get it.
Okay.
Management of the house, excluding litigation. So now, if you pay an agent for helping you find a house, look at it like this. Did he spend that 100,000 finding the house? The answer is no. So you are putting him in a position beyond where he's supposed to be. What we make payment for is what is called restituto ad integrum. You are putting somebody in a position the person will not be hurt for doing something with or for you, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you now have to profit, racketeer in order to profit from somebody, it becomes wrong. There may not be a legal wrong here, but there is a wrong in conscience. So when the society has come to ask a governor that this has become our problem,
Exactly.
then it's a societal problem. Now, how do we solve it?
Yeah.
How do we solve it? The quest for having increases by having. The quest to have increases by having. If you give a lawyer maybe 100,000 out of 500,000, you've given him about 200% of, you're giving him about 20%.
Yeah.
And he puts it behind his pocket. He moves 1 or 2 because it's not a very consistent thing. He looks for a new place to get under 20%. He has committed a moral wrong somewhere. He's committing it somewhere. Before you know it, it becomes a practice of trade. And it's wrong. So we don't allow these things to overshoot. If we're able to manage the property business, it goes round for everybody. But it is not the only cause of thing that is making things worse. I'll give you an example. The woman who cuts Ogo in Ogbete does not buy fuel, but she pays for fuel. Right?
Right.
She pays for fuel.
Exactly.
Because the society is interwoven. Everything is joined to everything. So if you have an aspect of the economy that is not performing well, some other aspect of the economy will have to pay for the bad performance of that area. If the value of money, if the economy is good, people will not be in the level of need that we are in. It will cushion things. So my first recommendation is we should resort back to what we feel is right. All of us have conscience. This person is just coming up, newly married person. You want to unburden him, he will start quarreling with his wife in his house. Is that what he wants? So when you do some of these things, you create more societal problems. Even you that collect the money loses it somewhere. So in good conscience, you should bring in human face to property dealings. That's one. Number two, lawyers should resort to their fees.
Yeah.
Good practice brings money. You don't have to kill somebody not to make it today. Our practice as lawyers is like the act of a vulture. It is a very conservative, long-suffering, long-enduring thing. And it pays. The last investment a lawyer makes could be the last one he made when he bought his last book. So most of the things he gets for free. It's just the knowledge and the other things he put in that is his tools.
Exactly.
So you must understand that everything must not happen today. There is something my boss told us. He says that the practice we have as lawyers those days is like a vulture trying to feed. A vulture hangs up in the air and sees everywhere. So you see matter in court, you see CAC, you see land practice, you see tenancy, you see other things. And these are all sources of income for you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So when the vulture sees somebody running in the desert and the person is running very fast, the vulture sees food in that person or that animal. The vulture hovers, sees the person very, very agile running. The vulture goes away to other things. One day, that person running will start walking. The vulture will come and say, my food is close. One day, that person will start crawling. One day, that person will lie down. The vulture will come and taste and he gets up. The vulture says, okay, don't worry, I'll come back. One day, that person will die and the vulture will feed.
Exactly.
So there is actually this panic to get it today. Should not be encouraged. Lawyers should resort back to their charging pattern. Number 3, these agents that you talk about is extortion.
Yeah.
Let me categorize it like this. There are 3 categories of taking things from people without their will. Number 1 is stealing. That's the smallest. That's the baby.
Okay.
The last one is armed robbery. But in between them is extortion. So when you take something from somebody because the person doesn't have capacity to say no, you've extorted him in good conscience. So extortion should be felt very seriously. In some other countries, what they do to an armed robber is what they do to an extortioner. It should be discouraged. Number 4, if somebody has talked to the governor about this, these are things that should go to the House of Assembly. To say this one and this one shouldn't be. The people that are in the house, unfortunately, some of them are the landlords.
Exactly.
Some of them are the landlords. The people in the government house, some of them are the landlords. The commissioners, and these are persons that are supposed to actually look at these things and provide solutions.
Exactly.
But because they are the first beneficiaries of this flawed system,
So we don't want to talk about it.
nobody wants to talk about it. But still, it doesn't, if you, with all your education and with this kind of platform that Makky has, you are doing a job, but there is still a recommendation that you should petition the House of Assembly of the States. Your voice is heard here, but there are other things you can do. You should also galvanize people to open a discussion with the NBA, Nigerian Bar Association. I said, you shouldn't join people to do this. If they remove all these excess charges, the heavens won't fall. The heavens will be happy.
At all. It won't fall.
And of course, last thing I want to say is that landlords who collect these things, they don't feel better. It's like what the Bible said, that you collect much and you have nothing. You collect little and you have nothing.
Exactly.
Because the economy is messed up. So just try as much as you can to contain this thing in good conscience and continue to move on.
Oh wow. I really must say that this is one of the best times I've heard on this podcast. Why? Because a lot of persons are saying congratulations for raising the topic, because it's now becoming a concern. It's now becoming like a thorn in our flesh, where you want to get an apartment. The first thing that will come to mind is, if I have the rent, Kwan, what about the agent? What about the lawyer? What do I tell the lawyer? What do I tell? Because some of them will not allow you see the landlord without paying those bills. It's that bad. You won't have contact with the lawyer, with the landlord of the house without paying those fees. It's a must pay. You must pay it. And the way they even go about, there's nothing. We're not going to remove anything. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. If you don't like it, then you move out, because a lot of persons are on this particular house. If you even move out now, a lot of persons are going to take the house. The whole thing is just so. If you now reason moving out from where you are, you just tell yourself, it's not better I just stay here. Let me just stay here, because I don't even have money to give to any agent or give to any lawyer anywhere. And then the management, after paying the lawyer fee, you're going to pay for management, you're going to pay for caution, you're going to pay for a lot. You're going to pay a lot of things. And I must say that
Let me bring in something here. You see, it's what is called betterment. And unfortunately, if I had seen these questions before, I would have prepared better.
Yeah.
But thank God I schooled in UNEC.
And thank God you have dished the answers. I mean, it's just been like this.
Yeah.
I must say.
There's what is called betterment. Betterments are actually created by things that are positive. Unfortunately, let me explain what betterment is for the benefit of our listeners.
Okay.
You build a house now close to my site in my village. Nobody will rent it, because that place is a village settlement. It is not close to anything that will promote somebody even making up to the rent to pay for next year.
Exactly.
Right. But if the government or somebody goes there to build a university, that my house will skyrocket immediately. So bringing things that make for societal development increases the rent around an area.
Exactly.
That is what's called betterment, right? Now, our own betterments came as a result of bad stories. I mentioned some of them from the beginning. Cost of things and the rest of it. I don't want to start capping those things.
Yeah.
Now, what do we do again? I've mentioned some factors, but there are a lot we can do. Immediately I left secondary school.
Yeah.
And I was working for a professor of industrial technology, one professor, Makky from Anambra State. There is something he told me about where he lives in the United States. He said that where he lives and where he works is like from Anambra to Port Harcourt, and he goes every day and has never gone late. Right. I don't know if it sparks anything in your brain. Where he lives, you know where Newe is.
Yeah.
You know where Port Harcourt is. He said that where he works and where he lives, it's like going from Newe to Port Harcourt. And he goes there every day and returns from there every day and has never gone late. I don't forget that statement. Because there is a betterment that makes for rent to come down. And that is simple things. If we have a light rail system that runs from Nsukka to Enugu, or that runs from Enugu to my village in Nenwe, or to the last border of Ogun, or even to the first community in Abia State, nobody will want to live here.
Exactly.
People won't want to live here. You finish your work, you go back and drink your palm wine in the evening and eat your bushmeat. Relax with those that you're born with. See your grannies. Relate with your cousins. Next morning, you join the tube. Come to the center, do your work, and go home. So these are things, apart from going for legislation, because one disadvantage of legislation is enforcement. Apart from going for legislation, government can do so much. One is that you can actually tackle the deficit in property. But you can hardly survive in tackling deficit in the type of our land tenure system in Igbo land. You go to a particular village and say you want to build houses. For who?
For who?
This land now, my grandfather gave me, his own grandfather gave him, his own father passed it on. I'm going to pass it to my children. That's how we believe lands pass. Nobody sells homelands. So who are you going to get his own to build this mass housing? So you must think out of the box. Create a system that makes the man come from his village to work. If we have a light rail, it is doable. These are not rocket science. It is done in countries that are poorer than our own, in states that are poorer than our own. But the sincerity is not there. The will, the political will to do this, it's not there.
Exactly.
So, you see, it is, if we don't get to talk about these things or do something about it, our children will wake up to talk about it. So it's like leaving a problem now, happy, I put the window. That kind of a thing. God will help us though.
Amen. Oh, thank you very much, Versa. I really want to say thank you within a very short notice, and it's for you've been dishing it to us hot. I mean, I've learned a lot of things. I'm not saying I'm going to make trouble with anybody.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I'm going to make trouble with anybody, but what I'm saying in essence is we, not just me now. I see a lot of persons don't want to comment, but they are sharing it. That shows that this thing is something that bothers people. Something that concerns everybody. You understand? And everybody wants to talk about it. And I just hope that someday the government will do something about it, because he made a promise when he was coming in that he will look into it. That was what he said when he was coming in, that he will look into it because people were talking about it. I could remember the time I even went as far as going into the market, asking these women, those women that sells ugu, small stores in the market, how they are coping, rentage and everything. Some of them were talking and were crying. And they are living inside one place. And you see that God in a okay. What you understand? And nobody is even smiling. But I thank God that we've gotten to this phase. And of course, anytime you're around, we want to always have you around. Have you on the It's not going to be about lawyers and
better. Let's talk about other things,
It's not going to be about lawyers and landlords and agents, but we're going to really talk about something else because wow. I must say thank you again, and I appreciate you for coming.
Makky, you're welcome. And thank you too for putting me behind the bars. Yes, I appreciate this. One of the things that makes us civilized or educated people is our ability to employ whatever we have for the solution of problems that are prevalent.
Exactly.
If whoever is there and has not provided or procured solutions for things is wild the mark.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate this podcast. I appreciate Go Back TV for bringing a platform that has capacity of actually discussing these things.
Yeah.
Of course, I also want to say, when the governor said he's going to look into it, I don't live in this state.
Exactly.
But there are things I see that tend to be sort of addressing these things. Just the magnitude of the trouble here is in quantum. But I see that the governor is actually doing some bus terminals now at various places.
Yes, exactly.
It's a step in a direction of actually addressing these things. And of course, I hope he deals with it. I also see too that the governor is also trying to increase the tourism potentials, or to tap into the tourism potential of Enugu.
Exactly.
I saw the massive international conference center that is doing, and some hotels being renovated and the rest of it. What it means is that the issue of this rent and things will worsen.
Exactly.
Yes. So when we are looking at building parks and these things, hastening the buses, good enough. You have an IVM in Anambra State. Hasten those things. Number two, get us things that tend to cushion the effect of the skyrocketing fuel or PMS, so that people can drive to the hinterlands and come from there to work. The cost of fuel is also one of the factors that make people want to trek from their houses to where they work. So these are things that aggravates the problems. So he's doing one good, but with the size of what he has in mind, sectors will gain, but sectors will struggle. The issue would be, where do we now cast our priority as a government? Do we leave this thing to save the rich and neglect the poor, or which other way? So I actually want to advise that the government or the state government should think holistic about those things. He's dealing with the buses, with the terminals. I saw what he's doing in Nsukka. I saw Holy Ghost now. I also saw Gariki, because these are places I traverse. I know that when these buses start to move into the hinders and bring people, if it is properly managed, it will really bring in something into this. But I think that mass mobilization is the key to open up the hinterlands. That's one. Number two, I also saw that he's doing a whole lot in trying to bring in infrastructure in the rural area. And he's done water in Enugu, which is good, but it's still going to worsen the problem, because people want to come to places where such infrastructures exist. So he should still have to take water down to places, especially, my governor, if you're listening, we don't have water in anywhere, unfortunately. So please, come in there. We have vast area of land, and we are willing and ready to build houses and rent these things to people with the good roads that we have. If we have water and we have good lights, we're definitely going to build a lot of houses for people to come from that place to the city center, and the rent will definitely reduce. That's it. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Wow. Thank you.
Makky, thank you. I have to go.
Yes, I'm going to leave you now, because it's already past 17:59.
Chileke.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I have a lot of persons online. Thank you, people, for tuning in. I'm seeing Chidima Dima. Thank you. Ima Legacy. Thank you so much. Madwekwe Jane. Thank you. And Jessica Daniels, thank you so much. These are the ones we can take for now. And I want to say a very big thank you to all of you for your support. You know, you guys are fans and our beautiful people. We actually come to the end of today's podcast, and I must say I enjoyed every bit of it with Barrister Promise in the building. Actually, he
Mr.
made
Promise.
Okay, with Mr. with Mr. Promise in the studio this evening. I want to say thank you, and don't forget to follow Go Back TV on Facebook, like now on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course you can follow us on WhatsApp if you have our number. My name is Makky, Makky, and we're gonna do this again next week. And don't forget, we always have this program that is coming up. I wouldn't want to spill it. Just hold on, and you're gonna enjoy every bit of it. But for now, this is where we're gonna draw the curtain for today. We say bye. See you again next week.